Good morning and welcome to this, the first Infrastructure and Projects Committee meeting. I will open it with our prayer. Creator, we come together to work for a common good of our district. Open our hearts to listen to one another, our minds to understand the different perspectives, and our hands to serve with dedication. Help us to build a united community through honest and fair decisions. Amen. Right, moving right along. Any apologies, please? Public forum. Notices of items not on the agenda. Declarations of conflicts of interest, please, in relations to the meeting here today. Good, none of those. Right, well, we'll head straight into reports. Hamish, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wallace, and good morning, Ms Scott, councillors and staff. Great to see everybody back for another round of infrastructure discussions. This first report is made up of multiple teams, so we'll step our way through that with the appropriate staff, starting with Andrew in the transport space. He'll do a quick summary and take any questions on the transport staff the transportation works before moving on to the water side. Thank you.
Just stand by a minute. You're on mute. Just while we're waiting, we've just got a technical problem, but it'll happen. I should have said welcome Mayor and councillors, my faux pas, but I'm new at the job.
Yep. How about that now?
Now we've got a battery. We're good. We're happy to go. Right, we'll hand it back to you, sir.
I'll say once again, welcome to the new council team here. We obviously met some of you at the Alliance induction last week or the week before. For those who we haven't met yet, I'm keen to get around and say hello after the meeting. But yeah, I suppose this is just an overview of this part of the roading side is just giving an overview of where we're at in the current space in the roading. There is obviously the Alliance management overview, which is more the high level strategic stuff. There's the network management update, which is my team and the Alliance in terms of the planning side of it, and then there's a delivery update. For the people who aren't used to these meetings, there are a lot of acronyms and terms that probably are thrown around, so if you don't know what they are, don't feel afraid to ask them because it takes a long time to get people into some of the terminology that we use. But I'll start off with the transport management, the Alliance management overview. We're very much focused on the upcoming audits space with NZTA procedural audit coming up. That's one of the important audits for the council that councils go through every 6 years to basically assess that we're got the right procedures in place, that we're following the processes that NZTA and Wakata have set in front of us. So that is set for April. This follows on from a technical audit which we had 2 years ago, which we went through relatively smoothly. So the procedural audit is more looking at the paperwork and the background bits and pieces within council. So that will come out in due course. We've said the ISO 55101 asset management certification audit coming through in February, which Corona, our asset manager, has taken the lead on. And we've got that in place as an external accreditation for the Alliance to probably back up some of the asset management practices that we talk about to get a bit of external reference to it, I suppose. Moving on to the network management update, given this is my area of interest and where I operate, there is a few things I would like to run through on that. With regards to what's in the report specifically, is there anything in there that jumps out as issues that are needing to be addressed that haven't been touched on? Because I'd probably like to know if there's people who got questions leading into it before I start talking too much, because I tend to ramble on sometimes. Yeah. So the transport management plan, activity management plan update is the biggest set of work we've got in the next leading up till June. Basically, that sets the agenda for the next 3 years of funding between 2027 and 2030 for council. Given the scale of the budget, the decisions that are getting made in the next few months alongside the long-term plan and annual plan, there's a lot of input that comes from different sectors, obviously which one's roading, and we're heavily subsidised by Wakotahi, with 73% subsidy coming in through them. So getting this right is very important to the council to make sure we've got the money to continue maintaining the network. The workshop that we have after this is largely touching on this, and what we're planning to do is work through the sets of workshops coming up in a very staged manner to make sure we bring councillors on the journey with it, because as I said, a lot of it's new information to people, it's new terminology and it's new processes that people won't be familiar with. So we're trying to do it in a manner that sort of the one we're having today will build for the next one, and then build for the next one, and build for the next one, rather than trying to dump everything on you at once. If you like reading documents, the previous transport activity management plan is a go-to. It's about 160 pages long, but it is the template that we're basically essentially updating for this next 3-year funding block. The focus that we're trying to start the process essentially is we start talking about what challenges we're facing on the roading network, what transport challenges we're facing, and what do we want to do about them. So we look at our network, we review what we've got now and what we want to achieve in terms of infrastructure. We decide on some problem and benefit statements, and what we've done in this report is I've included the current ones that we work on with the view to we need to now review them and update them to the new, I suppose these were developed 3+ years ago. Things have changed, the economy has changed, all sorts of dynamics have changed, so we need to review them and come up with new ones. And then what that does is that sets us gives us the transport team guidance for the next steps of it, because we don't do this right, we might be going off a different tangent, and at the end of it, when we start talking about dollars, we'll be squabbling about it essentially. So we want to try and form this in a way that we're very planned and organised and informed. So I say, if you have questions, ask as many as you have, because this will be the time to at the early stages to get up to speed. And if you have other questions beyond that, then we're happy to take them offline a little bit as well, because it can get very complex. So that's the AMP, the transport AMP, and we will deal with this a lot more in the workshop coming up. So I'll move on from that one now. The next one I've got on the list on page 6 is the footpath maintenance and renewals versus entranceways. The footpath renewals and entranceways, this is a outstanding challenge we've had from the previous AMP, where we didn't get the funding we requested through the National Land Transport Program. In this annual plan, Council agreed to providing another $150,000 for investment for the footpath network to get over to help us maintain the current status. And we're needing a bit of, I suppose, direction about what we want, where we want to invest that money. The footpath network is the Taurua District's footpath network is a big network. We have some challenges in it, and they're focused particularly around the vehicle entranceways. Historically, council haven't serviced the entranceways as they're seen as the landowner's responsibility. The challenges with that is NZTA see the footpath component of the vehicle entranceway as council's responsibility. We provide a footpath across the vehicle entranceway, and the dynamic between who then is responsible to repair it and maintain it essentially falls on us to provide a safe walking network. How we go about actually getting, how that gets funded is the conversation that always ends up as a hot topic, and Hamish, from probably your time in the space as head manager, this has been going on since the Alliance essentially started. So for those who are aware of it and challenges, keen to probably open that conversation about it again, because it is going to come up in the next AMP period as well, where we need to, I suppose, make a commitment. We did make a commitment at the last AMP, but unfortunately the NZTA essentially cut the funding from it quite significantly. So,
Mayor Scott?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Andrew. This really jumped out at me in your report. Absolutely take on board what you've said. We do need to be really, really clear when we're talking about this, though, as to what our policy is, and we do have a current policy that does require people to spend money themselves, and that the wording there saying that it conflicts with NZTA criteria. I just want us to be really clear that our policy that we've had, because I know that it's gone through complaints with some and quite a lengthy process, is compliant. So that's sort of my first question. Our current stance, is there a change to our understanding of the compliance to that policy? Are we doing what we should be doing?
So the current policy, as far as I'm aware, and Hamish, you might need to add to this a little bit, is when the last transport AMP was set, established that we would start intervening in vehicle entranceways through the renewal process. The outcome of the AMP resulted in the funding falling away, which then we got to the point where we needed to make a decision about what we were going to intervene in, and we haven't come, from my position, I haven't got a clean answer about what that looks like. We've got, the council granted the additional $150,000 unsubsidised, and the last conversation we had was we need to provide a plan forward for what that looks like. Obviously with the change in council through the election period when all this was happening, we didn't get a chance to address this before the previous council broke up, hence why I bring it back to the table now to probably get that definitive answer. It doesn't have to be at this right here, right now, but it does need to be clarified for the teams because it has creates a lot of contention within the teams about how they respond to customer requests of service for footpaths, whereas generally they're the driveway entranceways. And I suppose what there is the 2 parts to go is council can start issuing letters of non-compliance and seeking to recover costs, but there's no formal policy, as in like the road traffic and road use bylaw, for example, that we can actually use to enforce the payment of that, I believe. But Hamish, do you have anything further?
Yeah, I would say that there's no formal written thing explaining it in that way. I think what we're trying to get to is that there is an option for NZTA to help subsidise some of this work, while it's still the responsibility currently sits with the landowner. There is an opportunity to work with the landowners to help, I guess, offset some of that cost, but there is still that expectation that they need to cover their share of it.
Councillor Johnson. Thanks, Hamish.
Thanks, Chair Wallace. Yeah, I'm not quite sure that I'm with you. Can you give me a rough idea of what this year's budget for footpath maintenance is? And does NZTA subsidise that by 73%?
So the annual budget we've got for footpaths is roughly $215,000 in terms of maintaining the asset. We have no renewals budget. Maintaining the asset covers things like the sweeping, the cleaning of the main streets with water blasting. There's the general cyclic work, which is cleaning off moss and lichen, bits and pieces. The fault response part of that, which the pictures I've got on page 7, is the areas that we're having a challenge with. And essentially the modelling that we did with the footpath maintenance budget over the NLTP, the 648,000, was just enough to deal with the current faults on the network in a dressing manner. So it wasn't fixing them, it was putting a skim coat, a surface over top of them to make them safer, and they would deteriorate relatively quickly. It wasn't a repair, it was a dressing, essentially. The $150,000 that was approved potentially gave us the ability to make more robust repairs in those instances. And the question in regards to subsidy is partially in this annual plan, 150,000 has been given unsubsidised to get on top of the maintenance issues we faced, because if we didn't invest that, have that additional money, the footpath network would deteriorate further and further and further, and essentially create more of a burden and a safety risk. So part of it's subsidised. That's about 50% of the subsidiser is currently locked into lichen cleaning and water blasting the main streets, and then the other 50% is there left over for basic repairs.
So if that's the case, all of the money spent on repairing these crossings where there's damage, and the argument as to whether it's the owner's responsibility or council's, why is NZTA demanding that we change the rules, from what you say? If we're paying for it, we decide who's responsible for the payment, the property owner or council, not NZTA, surely. So
the footpath component of the vehicle entranceway, and I think that's where we need to create the delineation, is there's the bit that comes through the curb channel up onto the footpath, or the footpath component, where it's a shared use function. And from a safety point of view, is council needs to be providing a safe walking, ticking the safety box essentially first from a walking point of view. And our asset database, the way it's in the system, is some footpaths cover, in terms of the picture, I suppose you look at the map, and you've got the vehicle entranceway, which is designated, but then you've got the footpath component that runs through it, and essentially the two pictures that I've got there kind of try and demonstrate that. The blue part is the vehicle entranceway part, but the bit in yellow is the footpath of that. And so because that's included, that footpath component is in the asset database, we're getting funding from NZTA to maintain it, and essentially that's where the back and forth goes, is NZTA saying, well, we fund it, and then council, the position is it's a vehicle entranceway, and that's where we need to decide actually what it is we can have a footpath network that has all these gaps in it, and all these problems, all these vehicle entranceways sections that the footpath is non-existent technically.
Ms. Scott?
So it's a bit of a dog's breakfast.
Hold on, Pete. Excuse me. We're just, Ms. Scott, just come back through the chair, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Andrew, thanks. I think I understand what you're talking about. My request probably, though, is that when we're reporting on this, that we are really clear, because I think we probably need a larger document, because there are some contentious decisions that we'll need to make. This is a matter that has quite high public interest, because some people have challenged whether they should have to pay for that, and then have paid it. A number of people have paid, so then if others don't have to, we need to take that into consideration. I think we do also need to be clear, so we're not opened up for anyone coming back to us that has been told that they need to pay, that the policy is compliant. Certainly we can review that policy, and we should. The last council had some discussions, but there was no decision made to change the responsibility for vehicle entranceways. Also important to note that it's not uncommon for councils across New Zealand to have that policy. I think I understand what you've done to condense that, but I think that we probably do need to really dig into this in some detail because of the public interest. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Councillor Peter.
I guess Scott sort of covered my comment, but it could end up being a real dog's breakfast. I mean, if you look at that picture there, if we're only responsible for the footpath part of it, but the curb and what have you, who's responsible for that? And if you're going to do the job, you're going to do the whole lot at one time anyway, in most cases, I would think. So we could end up half doing it. We do our bit and leave the rest for the property owner.
Yeah. And that's probably the from where we sit, it doesn't matter if we go the property owner's responsibility and start taking, I suppose, the compliance part of it. We can take the hard line on it, and we just need to, given what the conversation and what was improved as part of the funding through the AMP, then the technical audit, and then the associated decrease in budget. We haven't finalised what that looks like through it, and within this annual plan we've got the $150,000 that was set aside to address the worst faults, which we've now got 4 months to utilise, and essentially the clock's ticking essentially to make a decision about where we invest that, because we're still obligated to provide a safe footpath network, and most of the safety faults are triggered around these vehicle entranceways. They're not the little random section of footpath that only gets pedestrians, it's where the vehicles are going. So I say it is a crunchy decision, and what potentially could happen, we don't know what's happening in this next annual TP for footpaths. For all we know, they might defund a lot of it. They might increase the budget back to where we were requesting. So the AMP journey will take us on that, and the output of the GPS, the government policy statement of transport, will determine where that heads. But here and now we've got $150,000 in this annual plan that I need to make a decision about how we invest that. And from a safety point of view, the worst safety faults are on the vehicle entranceways. So.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Chair Steve. So Mayor Scott touched a lot already on the concerns around this, and thank you for your report, Andrew. But I'm just wondering, is there a specific date for this decision? It would be good to know at the earliest convenience, just to ensure that we have robust feedback from the community. Thanks.
The $150,000 that's been approved, that is essentially that's in this annual plan period, is obviously by the 30th of June we've got to have that spent. The expenditure of that is likely to be probably May, June when we do the work. So having a decision by May would be ideal. And yeah.
Thank you.
I've got one for you. There's 3 types of crossings. What is the standard going forward? Because you got the old brick one, right? You got the one in the picture, and then you've got the other steel inlays. Yep. So could you just run us quickly through, because obviously they're all different costs going forward. Yep. All those crossings, as per what you're saying here, would be on the council, correct? Because that's the council's bit. So within the engineering standards that were put together last year, the primary standard is for urban is concrete, so full width concrete, and I believe that's what's that. Did you say a forward?
Full width concrete.
Yeah, but is it a forward or a ford like going through a river? Is a ford?
Full width.
Full width, but is it a culvert?
It depends on the case.
That's what I'm meaning. What designates what you're going to put in?
Is essentially the grade you can achieve. So when you've got vehicles coming across, they can only traverse a certain grade, and if the elevation of the road is up here and the footpath's up here, the steep grade going in determines whether it becomes a plate crossing, which is the steel plates across it, or whether they can just have a standard concrete apron. The concrete apron is the lowest cost maintenance side of things because it doesn't block up. The steel plate is the next best thing. We tend to try and avoid small culvert pipes in the urban because they literally just collect leaves. In the rural, it is case by case based on where it's positioned. If it's in a roadside drain, it'll get a minimum 300mm culvert pipe. There's a general standard, but then it needs to be situated to the environment it's been put in as well. But the engineering standards that we put together last year does define that better than what we've had in the past, because previously we were using Manawatu standards and PNCC standards, and it was a bit of a mishmash of what's going on. So we've got the standards now in place, which is the if you go down this route, you will likely get approved. Doesn't mean they have to use that option. They can present an alternative.
Thank you. Councillor Pigger.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Is the redeemed width of a footpath? Is it 1.5 metres, for example? I'm just looking at the photographs here, and then it's got property owner you've got a full, probably a Dannyberg footpath that's gutter to property boundary, and the footpath is sealed right across.
Yeah.
In Woodville, for example, it's only 1.5 metres of footpath. Looking at the picture here where you say property owner owns part of that, and it almost suggests that council is only responsible for 1.5 metres of it. Is that the case?
So NZTA have a walking and cycling standard which details the footpath, the ideal footpath widths. The desired width is 3 metres. That's been based on for a heavily metropolitan area with potential for wheelchairs passing. The absolute minimum standard, the absolute minimum width of that standard is 1.6. So you've got to factor in all the different dynamics. We don't need to follow the NZTA standards per se. It's guidelines. Actually, it's a walking standard guidelines, not a standard. So this is they've done all the modelling. They've tested it all and how the dynamics work. When we've got back streets that have barely minimum use, then yeah, a 1.6 is appropriate. Where we've got the urban footpaths out here, you will want the full width. Essentially, what's happened, the history of the Tararua district with all the different boroughs is every council had their own standard and methodology and product, whereas down in Woodville and Woodville particularly has got a lot more concrete ones, which are narrow because concrete's you go for length. They went for length, whereas up in Dannyberg, a majority is asphalt. I might not be correct on this, but it's largely because when they had the asphalt plant down in Tauroti, essentially they would have had cheap asphalt, ability to procure cheap asphalt, so they all got built out of asphalt. And essentially, what's happening is the asphalt is coming to end of life now. It's aged, it's weathered, and the stickiness, I suppose, of the asphalt is falling apart. So hence why we're getting that rapid deterioration of that surface.
So just to clarify then, e.g. in Dannyberg, the existing width of the footpath as you see it is the footpath.
Yes.
So why on this photograph have you got part of it, the right-hand picture on page 7, part of it being property owner?
So that's the options that we could take is if the council makes a decision to maintain the approach that the vehicle entranceway is the responsibility of the property owner, then the one on the left applies. If we recognise that the footpath crossing across the vehicle entranceway is the responsibility to maintain of council because that's their pedestrian network, then that's the right option could apply, and that was where we were heading after the last AMP period, is that was what was the formal directive that we were working towards. We didn't get the funding to be able to do that, and hence why we're in this bit of a, well, what are we actually doing now? So what we're saying is the minimum width we need to provide is 1.6. So we could go through that and repair 1.6 metres wide, and that would be our area of maintenance.
A little bit in the fog, but it's starting to clear. Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the explanation, Andrew. I suppose I have the same request that I mentioned, but I do think that this is worthy of some more detailed conversation. As a team in our last long-term plan, we talked about some of this, and actually we didn't quite get to a resolution. I think the community would like to have a resolution. There's a couple of things I think we need to consider as we do that, though, is we are moving into a tougher financial environment. Affordability is very, very much on the forefront of our minds, so we have to be really cognizant of that, of whether we as a council take on more responsibilities that will cost more. But I would really like to see, and I think it's worthy of it, a more detailed report running through some different options for us to consider. That can be run through a workshop which is open to the public, so public can see and be a part of that, or we can share those conversations. But there are many ways to skin a cat that could solve the problem, and that doesn't just mean council takes responsibility. Council could do the work, as Councillor Johns was talking about, and have a very, very clear cost recovery structure. There were some other things we traversed in the last LTP of, does council have the ability to give notice, give a time period for things to be rectified, because most of the faults are in that vehicle entranceway area, give a reasonable notice, and if it's not done, council runs through and fixes it and then bills the person. I'm not saying that is what we would decide to do, but I think these are options that need to be traversed. We get a lot of feedback from community members about footpaths. This is a high level of dissatisfaction, so it's something that we need to show that we're actively working on. We recently went out with the Rangatane Scooter Club and heard their feedback as well. So this will be of high public interest, but there aren't easy decisions to be made.
Yeah, I agree completely with Scott on that, me Scott. And as we know, if depending on which part of town you live and which town in the district you live, there are different levels, because we're getting older. If you go to newer parts of town, they went to grass either side and concrete, no problem. But if you go to another, but it's all reflected in rates and all the rest of it. But so we're at that tipping point, and we've got to do all this maintenance, limited budget. You guys have got a limited budget, and even from, well, that's what we're fighting for from central government, and the people. That's the ratepayers, as we said. The ratepayers, they haven't got any more money. So we have to think wisely, and try, because it's no fault of ours that we're 160 something years old now, you know, and we'll be. Do you imagine when it's 200 years old? I won't be here, but anyhow. Right. So moving along. Any more questions on that bit? Right. Let's move it up. Thank you.
So further to that one, we are working towards developing a few roading policies that we can operate under, and this is one of the areas that we would try and touch on in terms of giving us a bit of guidance. Like, I mean, essentially what this is these problems fall back onto the supervisors and the corridor manager to go and address, and because of like you said, the fog that's around it, they can't make it. They stall and can't make a decision. So in terms of servicing the ratepayers and being a responsive council, it's hard to do it when we don't have that clarity. So hence why we've been exploring some opportunities to create some sort of better guidelines for us for the roading department to operate under. It touches around things like the level of service, which we've been working on for a number since essentially Cyclone Gabriel, and it's all wrapping up towards this. So as we progress through this AMP period, we'll be introducing that as well. One thing we have been exploring in the background is how other small rural local councils do it, and we did come across a very good one from the Waitaki District Council in terms of their roading policy, and I suppose all the frustrations that some of our team have if we had something like that, it would basically give us the rule book to work to. So watch the space, and it will be dripped out through the development of the AMP to allow us to start making some decisions about what we provide the community. Moving on to the operational side of things, so the focus currently is to close out the pre-reseal repair program for our reseals. We are targeting to be complete with that by the end of the month, and that enables all our reseal program to be completed. We have an update from Corinne this morning that we are now 48% through the reseal program. January's been a bit of a tough one with the weather that's gone through, but essentially things are tracking relatively well in the space. We've got a big 6 months or 4 months now of work to get ahead, but we are moving at pace, and hopefully it stops raining.
Councillor Sharon, great to see you.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just a quick question on page 10. I mean, you've moved past it a bit, Andrew, but through you, Chair Steve, can I just ask, you made a comment there about the number of CRMs received for the month of December, and further down you make the comment that you would really like to review how the customer requests are responded to. Every week we as councillors get the CRM dashboard sent to us. Are those CRMs recorded in those dashboard results? And do you sift them out, Andrew, or is there a different system that you, and I guess my further question through you, Chair Steve, is how are those CRMs trending? I mean, that's a monthly snapshot. Up, down, in between, all of the above.
So with regards to the systems we operate to manage the CRMs, we've got the council system which records which is the primary source for recording them. That is largely focused on the response to the CRM from where we sit within the AWM, which the previously called RAM system. As we have another system which is cloning that, but essentially it's tracking the work progress that's associated with it. What the teams are finding is, with the 2022-23, we went through a very wet period where the pavement, given it was Cyclone Gabriel and the amount of work that's been going on, the pavement has taken a bit of a hammering with all the truck movements that have been going on. So there has been a slight decline in terms of sealed pavement network condition, and we're now finding that's coming to light. So the micro cracking that we're finding that occurred during the soft subgrades is now starting to real pay off, and we're starting to get more potholes. We have got a large budget in this NLTP to deal with reseals, but that's the benefits of that are sort of 2 to 3 years down the track, which we're sort of working through the early part of that right now. So we've got big reseal programs which will start dealing with CRMs. With regards to the vegetation, it is also very much comes down to the weather. We've had rain, we've had sun, and things grow. Our network vegetation maintenance is based on, we do a third of the network a year, and it'll be potential, not without knowing where these specific ones are, it's likely that they'll be on the next to-do list as they come up, and it's just the rotation. So we do notice there's a trend of increase in vegetation and CRMs in areas that are sort of in the next year's program because things are growing. And yeah, depends on what the temperature and climate is. If you get a boost in summer when it's wet, that's, yeah.
Just before Deputy Chair Chris, Hamish, please.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just to add to that report that you receive, I get a copy of it as well, and it's what's left over and how long it's been left out open, effectively. So if they deal with 100 CRMs in a week and they deal with all within that time period and close them all out, then they won't appear on that report at all. I might have a chat with our team to see whether they can say, look, out of the 1,000 we received this week, we've closed out 900, and these are the outstanding ones, because that would sort of give context to that report. I think there's a little gap there, so I'll have to take that on.
Deputy Chair Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Steve. And Hamish, a little bit towards what you were speaking, I sort of touched on, or wanted to touch on the number of responses that we see in the CRM versus these numbers here didn't really align. So I was going to ask that, but that sort of answers half that question. But looking at those responses and wanting to bring those into groupings in that CRM report, I don't know full ownership of it, but to bring it into a place where we can actually see with departments what's going on and how they're tracking to all of their work. Like if you're saying that closed out jobs are not on the CRM report, then that's something that needs to be, I think from our side, we would like to see them. Even if they are closed, it's good to see. But a little bit further into what Sharon was talking around, the workshopping of customer requests. What is the guidance and timelines and sort of expected KPIs around response times and stuff now? Is this something that is being built out, or if it exists, what are they, and is it something that council's going to have some input into how this sort of would look?
So the response times in terms of the broad CRMs within council, there is a variety of different KPIs for the roading side of things, the response is 3 days in terms of getting back to the customer with a answer or a comment. The actual then flow-on work stream is based on are we achieving the level of service? So a fault may come in and a complaint may come in. If it falls below the level of service of intervention, then the job will sit in the system until it gets to the point that it becomes a level of service intervention. It is a very big area we spend a lot of time talking about within the Alliance, and I know there's with the spike we've seen in some of the for example, the pavement faults, for example, based on the conditions that we've gone through, it has become a bit of a hot topic about how we respond to them, and we are talking about actually setting up a reactive crew to be able to deal with the whack-a-mole type scenarios that go on, because what we try and do is we've got inspection and patrol, and the cyclic patrol is the activity that then goes and picks them up before they essentially gets to the point that someone will ring up and complain. What we're finding is because we're getting the bow wave of the whack-a-mole type things, is the people are getting pulled off it. So it's a bit of a scenario where the more patrol you do, the less complaints you get. The more whack-a-mole situation you do, the less patrol you do. So it's essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we don't do patrol, we get more CRMs, but then we respond to CRMs, and so the guidelines, I suppose, around that is we're very much making sure the team know where the level of service intervention is, so and being able to provide the right response to customers, basically stating if it doesn't meet the level of service intervention level, that it will be fixed as part of the cyclic program, rather than we get a call in tomorrow, we'll go and fix it type thing, because reactive stuff is very expensive. Proactive stuff is where we get the benefits in a holistic sense. And so what I was talking about, the reseal program that we're doing, we've got a budget to allow us to get on top of the waterproofing, which is leading to potholes in the first place. So if we can waterproof the network, then in 2 years, 3 years time, we will see a very much decrease in trends in pavement faults related. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just a little bit to that, I think if people got a response in some cases would be better as well, because they don't have a response to say nothing's being done there because, we don't have the time. I think that's a lot of complaints I get about no one's doing anything. Even if someone's gone and had a look at it, we wouldn't know. So I think that's just a comment there.
Yeah, we do find that as well as the callback request features within the Inteno app isn't quite working for our needs as well. And I do think we need to review that as a team. And so, yeah, I'm glad that brought
Hamish.
Thank you, Chair. So internally we're having some of the same discussions that Andrew's having with his team around how we manage CRMs coming through, looking at the Inteno app and how we can better utilise that in a way that we can get back to people and that those loops are closed properly and the clock's ticking from the right point. With that report in particular, bear in mind that some of those long-standing ones are because there is still something we're working through. We have contacted the customer. We have started a process with them. Some of the building ones, for example, they take months and months and months to work through some of these challenges. And some of the teams are using that as a way of keeping them current and open so that they're visible. Andrew said that the Alliance takes those issues and then works them through internally with their own tools. So there's just different ways of managing it. So yeah, there is some processes we're working on. Thank you.
I must say I like that phrase, whack-a-mole. I can just see people out there with a hammer, whack, there's another one. But yeah, I had to think to myself, what is a whack-a-mole? But anyhow, that's cleared.
Yeah.
It's a pothole when you come along and hit it with a hammer, in your case, a shovel, and fill it up.
Good. Yeah. So I'm trying to I'm very self-conscious about the fact that I do ramble on quite a bit when it comes to this stuff. So I'll stop now in terms of the report, but if there's any questions specifically about it, feel free to ask now. Otherwise, let me ramble on next to the next workshop.
I'm pleased you said that. Thank you. Any further, I know you've all read this report from cover to cover. Is there any further questions, please? Just quickly going over, I must commend you on page 16 and 17 and 18, 19. Great work here. So, any further questions? Right, thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.
Watch out for the mob. Right, we'll carry on. Who's up next? We want to go, or do you want a coffee? You happy? Sir Peter. Right, we're going to have a little interim break. Thank you very much. We'll be back shortly. Well, welcome back to this first Infrastructure and Projects Committee. As just for people out there in TV land, this is our new format. So yeah, it's a really interesting time we're moving into, and we've got some really dedicated people in the operational side. So yeah, we've all got one focus in mind: the betterment of the Taurua district. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the next report, Michael.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to take the opportunity, so I'm our Operations Delivery Manager, and I'll be reporting on this one on our Three Waters. So again, thank you, Chair, Mayor, Councillors, ladies and gents. So I also wanted to introduce and take the opportunity in this session as well to introduce our Operations Manager, Vito Lim, as well as our Three Waters Assets Manager, Marcus Clifford. So they'll also be here to be able to answer any other questions that you potentially have throughout this report. So the report, we cover off on a bit of Three Waters just from the overview, and in particular in these ones, we'll be looking at the Water Shortages Management Committee and our reports from there. Overall, we seem to be tracking quite well, as in particular as opposed to last year. And onto that, I would then move into some of the ones that have been key for us to track, which was the Denver compounded supply. We will carry on to some of the works that we have then conducted over that time. Some of the other ones that we are looking at were the Paetua Water Treatment Plant and the works that have gone there, with also a mention to our other areas, both Pongaroa and Akatea. Then we'll move into wastewater, and then we also have from there a bit more information about some of our network and the 5 main ones, projects that we are looking at progressing throughout the next few years. We then will touch on a little bit about our consenting and compliance, as well as just a wrap up of our administration. Did you want us to walk through it, Chair?
Is there any questions so far? Yes, I think everyone's down, eyes looking. So yeah, please carry on, Mike.
All right, thank you, Chair. So, again, for the Water Shortage Management Committee, we have actually just recently met as well, so as by way of an update to this update from the last one, we are actually again in a better position across the board. If there's any questions though across that section.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair. On the operation status report on page 20, with the number of locations that we've got, these primary locations, being able to see like what you've got in Woodville, where you've got the 27 days of supply, if there's no ability to extract, that would be good to have for each of them. So it is something that, you know, we can help. If there's a higher usage, like we've had in Ikitahuna, that we've only got, say, 2 days worth of water in there, if we can, you know, have something to talk to that, it would be good to have in that report. Yeah, it's just good to see that. And with the Ikitahuna one,
could you bring your mic down? It's a bit hard, and maybe speak up a little bit.
With the Ikitahuna one, with the boil water notice and stuff that's been going on there, obviously it's a key point to me in the area. Has there been an update on the total volumes used and on a daily usage? I know we were sitting up, you know, 500-600 in some cases, and with our average previously being around that, you know, lower levels. Are we back down to those lower levels now pretty consistently?
Thank you for the question. Our numbers man, asset manager, Marcus, is quite keen, I can tell, to answer that question.
Yep, you're talking numbers now. That's my game. Absolutely. So, interestingly, after the previous committee meeting, we talked about putting some comms out, and there was some messaging went out to the public. And interestingly, 24 hours later, demand went down. So we were talking around the 500, 550, 600 cubic metre per day. The average is usually around 300 to 350, and we have dropped back to that baseline level. Now, Interestingly, we always do comparisons. So the nice thing about collecting data over the years is you can compare years against years, different weather patterns, all of that kind of thing. And interestingly now, we're slightly lower than the same time last year. So, yes.
Excuse me there, I love that idea about data, because we were talking about this in the first term. And how far back now can you go? I know we've got the new SCADA, because I think what I'm trying to do is build a picture for the people and, understand that we're on top of this and we're collecting and we're showing and so forth. I think the work you're doing is invaluable. So from where you started to where you are now, is it 1, 2, 3, 4 years or?
So we have in the order of 4 to 5 years worth of good quality data now. So it's great that we can see those patterns emerging since 2019, 2020, when we had serious droughts. Then we had the wetter weather in 21, 22. And now we're starting to see those cyclic patterns and we can compare them now. So yes, 4 to 5 years worth of good data.
Couple out the side there. Right, Chair, Councillor Erina, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Steve. Thank you. Thanks for the report, guys. I'm just asking about Dennyville because it would have changed now because the water was turbulent in this report. Has it been lifted, the impounded supply been lifted up from 7 metres?
Good morning. So yes, regarding the impound, the Tamaki River turbidity has dropped out, and that has allowed us to draw from the river and top up our impound. So as of the report, we were at about 7 meters, but as of this morning, we are back up to 8.6 meters. So for comparison, 9 meters is where we usually want to be at, so we are not too far away.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Thanks for the report, you guys. I guess the report covers the period where we've had plenty of rain and over the past couple of months. That could well change within the next, if we continue to get the weather we're having now, that could change very, very, very quickly. But I have one question. I think a couple of weeks ago a comment was made, and I forget who by, that Woodville's impounded supply gave us 60 days storage. And at the time I doubted that. And I see you've got 27 days here. Is that the dam's not being used, the impounded supply is not being used currently, I presume? It's all been from the stream take. That hasn't been stopped, has it? Well, the question is, have you had to use the impounded supply yet? You have.
Thank you for the question. To answer that, yes, we have been using the impound whenever there's turbidity in the river at Woodville. So the situation is similar to Dennyville. Whenever we have a rainfall event, turbidity is present in the river, and that stresses the plant if we were to use that turbid water. So as a result, we will switch to the impound and use that in the interim until the turbidity clears up in the river, and then switching back. So over the weeks, it really depends on the weather patterns. If it rains, we will switch to the impound. Once turbidity goes down, we'll go back to the river, while at the same time topping up the impound, just to give us that resiliency in the future.
Thanks for that. So when the impounded supply is full, how many days does that give Woodville on average?
It's like pass the parcel. It is around about 60 days. Yeah. So at the moment it sits around, off the top of my head, 34,000 cubic metres. There is actually the ability to hold, if you're right at the very, very top, 80,000 cubic metres. It's just a little bit of a struggle to actually get that volume in there when you've got these low river conditions. So even though we've had rain, we have still seen at the river we're on our lowest possible take most of the time.
Great stuff. Right. Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I'm always impressed by the instant recall of numbers by the team, so thank you. Thanks for the update as well on the Eketahuna usage. I find it very interesting that that dropped off so quickly, and I won't ask you if we've been able to track that further, because unfortunately we can't without water meters and other things. I did just want to quickly do a thank you to the team for the response to the boil water notice that was issued in late January. That came through quite quickly on a Saturday. I was pleased, along with Councillor Corlett and Board Member Corlett, to assist with the operations team in passing out and delivering the flyers for that boiled water notice. The professionalism and the quickness of getting the notices together, getting a team of staff, regardless of the time, on a weekend down. We had GM Hamish there as well, to quickly get messages out to the public is always impressive. But I did want to thank, there was a big group that came of staff on their weekend, and I was very, very grateful for it. So I just wanted to pass on my thank you.
Very good. That is true. They did work very hard. Right, carrying on with the report. Any further questions at this stage? Carrying on. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor, for that acknowledgement. I'd just like to echo that as well, that we have a very dedicated team, and it's great to see that everybody pulled together for that. I'd like to just also say that I think it might be a bit of an idea that we put our heads together as well about how we could potentially have a running figure for those days of storage, or how that would potentially look. I mean, at this stage, though, it does become quite tricky when it becomes an issue of, water in versus how much we can draw, how much is actually there, and what the demand looks like. But perhaps we can have a bit of a think about it. So moving on to the Denver compounded supply. So our monitoring has been ongoing. We continue to do physical walkovers and we check the data. So that's largely thanks to Marcus and his team. We have been progressing for a dam safety management system. The DSAP was to comply with the regulations, whereas the dam safety management system, as highlighted and in further detail within the report, however, the main key parts there is that we would be identifying both governance and policy and people for who would be responsible and what that escalation pathways look like within the management system. It is then also the recommended practice that is asked for these sort of medium impact classification dams. Working through that, Tom and Taylor are currently reviewing our monitoring systems, and we'll be providing further in the future for that. The infiltration gallery and the alternate water infrastructure. Handing over to you.
Thanks, Mike. So for the infiltration gallery at Dennyburg, we have had some ongoing issues, especially during dry seasons when the Tamaki River is low. So some of the operational challenges includes being unable to draw sufficient water from the infiltration gallery at very dry periods of time. We are not there yet, but we are thinking proactively about what can we do in the meantime. So some of the problems that we have identified at the Tamaki River includes a change in the gradient of the river and also the river pattern. So there are some areas around our infiltration gallery where the river has mediated away from our gallery. So Horizons is aware of what's going on site. And in the report, it also states that Horizons will be undertaking some works at the Tamaki River, and that is starting on the 20th February. And that includes removing some vegetation along the banks. What they believe the works will achieve is a better flow in the river, and that will help with the gravel removal, and the gradient maintenance at the infiltration gallery. And on our part, we are also gonna inspect our infiltration gallery pipes next week. We'll put in a CCTV system and inspect some of the joints, and we'll be doing some of the patch repairs as well. Those are the joints that were identified to be having some issues from our previous report in 2024. So that's for the infiltration gallery, where we draw the raw water to the plant. And then moving next to the impound, one of the technical challenges is that we weren't able to tap into the bottom 6 meters of the impound previously. But with this project that we installed a pump system on the cover, which completed in November last year, we have tested successfully that we are able to draw 60 liters per second from the impound at 6 meters into the plant. And 60 liters per second is roughly what the treatment plant usually operates. Yeah. So taking all together, we are trying to make sure we are able to draw raw water from the infiltration gallery, and we are making sure we can maximize the potential of the impound at Dennybrook.
Could I ask a question? Do we, and I think we do, this is the data, it goes in at the intake and it comes out after treatment and it comes out at the dam, basically, correct? Do we know what that figure is and what that figure is, please? Are they the same? And if they're not, what percentage?
So with the data, we'd like to understand a lot better exactly what that water balance is between the intake and the impound. We've had some challenges with the flow meter at the beginning, at the intake end, that it's not entirely accurate. Something that we've been working with Horizons to remedy, because that's part of our consent conditions, to have an accurate flow meter so we can tell exactly what we're taking. So the answer.
Sorry, could I just stop you there? Have we got a date on that one, please? On that flow meter, because we heard, I'm a bit like Peter, we heard that, Councillor Peter, we heard that last year or the year before. I'm just being pedantic because we seem to be, and I don't mean, but I mean, we don't have enough signal, we all noise. I want to be more signal and less noise, you know what I'm saying? Please. So have we got a date, please?
So in regards to the flow meter installation, we did.
The faulty one at the intake. I heard that 2 years ago.
So we are doing some of the flow meter installation out there, but we've had to delay the works and defer it because of the river was so turbid and we had lowered the impound level. So with that in place, we didn't want to go and dig up the intake line, further exacerbating the situation. So we've deferred that, and then that's been scheduled in shortly, so next week.
That's great. Next week. Yeah. No, I know you guys have got challenges that people don't understand, and I'm just putting it out there so we know, you know, because that's so good, because at the next meeting we're going to have the data. So you'll have that figure and that figure. Now, Horizons obviously play a part in this because we have to perform for them. Yeah. Okay. Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the update on the submersible pumps. It's probably a bit of a general comment about the Dennybrook impound supply and the resilience of it. There is some incredible work being done by the team to make sure that we're able to adequately operate that safely at a reasonable cost. There's still a fair bit of confusion in the community as to the status of the impound supply. I would say multiple times a week I would have conversations where many people still believe that it's leaking or we can't take as much out of the dam. Obviously we are running it at a lower level, but that is now offset by the pumps at the bottom. I wonder if there is an opportunity, because I think the team are doing some incredible work in the background. We do spend time publicising this, but doing some more easy explainers, and it might be something that we can pass through to comms about where we are at with it and talking about the success and the resilience of the impound supply. But I wanted to commend you for the information on this report, but also put the challenge out of how do we get that information out to the public in an easy, digestible way. But thank you very much, team.
Carry on, please.
Thank you. I'll just, I suppose I'd like to highlight a couple of parts as well that are just around the operations of this. So we capitalised on the opportunity as the Tamaki was turbid at the time, and we were drawing on the impound. So as we actually neared that 6 metre mark was when we ran the test for the pump to confirm that. So we'd done all the modelling and we all had confidence in it that we had tested it around the 8-9 metre mark. But having the proof in the pudding was when we actually hit that sort of 6 metre mark. So that was a really good result, showing that it was actually indeed capable of doing that.
Just a question while we're on pumps. I know there could be some work at the on solar. Any thought of solar panels out there to power these pumps? Because then we'd be cost neutral for the energy to pump the water from the bottom to the top. I just wonder if that's in a strategy plan going forward.
At this stage, I haven't investigated anything for solar panel or solar panel arrays for the site, but it can be something we have a look into.
Yeah, it's just a thought because the sun doesn't go out. Right, carry on, please.
I would just add a comment to that the investment for the amount of time that pump would run would probably not be neutral. I just suggest. So the idea is that we operate that on a gravity basis, and that the normal pumps will provide the flow for the treatment plant, but for that solar array, just for the occasional use that pump would be needed, may not be worth the investment.
Oh, that's good. I don't know what the kilowatt rating is, so yeah, but I mean, if it's energy, you can put it to something. They're all motors, they all take energy. But anyway, good stuff. Keep going, please.
No point taken, thank you, Chair. Following on from that with the Paiatoa water treatment plant upgrades that we've been moving around the chemical shed, so that's all been installed, and we have had some further work that has been coordinated again by Vito, so with you, Vito.
Thanks, Mike. So for the Paiatoa water treatment plant, the later half of last year, we did identify that there were some leaking tees at the bottom of our membrane system. And for the next few months, we've coordinated with Aqua Manage, which is our technical contractor for the membranes. And we've coordinated and executed a successful tee replacement in January at Paiatoa. So as a result of this successful exercise, all 40 tees were replaced, and what we have achieved at the end is there are no leaks coming out at the bottom of the membrane plant. In terms of health and safety wise as well, the plant floor is dry. It makes moving around a bit safer and easier for the operators. And also what's coming out of the membrane, we do see an improvement in the turbidity as well. So in the report, we did indicate that turbidity has halved. To give you some numbers behind that, we were operating at 0.04 NTU previously, but after this repair, we have halved it to 0.02. Yeah, so not only did we improve health and safety on site, reduce the leaks, but we have also, sorry,
less chemical too.
at this stage, no chemical savings because the chemical cleaning regime is still the same. The frequency is still the same. The amount of chemicals we use is still the same. Yep.
Councillor Peter, please.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Thanks for that explanation. I'm very familiar with teas, but I can't for the life of me think why you would want small wooden or plastic teas in the membrane plant. What are these teas? Are they,
Yep, so if you look at the report, on the right-hand side of the image, that is the T's that we are mentioning. So with regards to why the T's had cracked, the Philtech, who is the one who installed the plant for us, as well as Aqua Manage, our technical contractor, we were still unable to determine the root cause of what caused it. But it has been not say common or rare, but it has happened before at other treatment plants. So when there's a crack in the tea, the treated water that's coming out from the membranes passes through that area. And because it's a pressurized system, clean water is being lost from those cracks. Yeah.
Could I just ask then what you're saying? That's a fitting failure, basically. So have you got alarms on that when your pressure goes down back to the SCADA that you got a fault? It's only an input.
Yes, we do have systems and alarms in place to monitor weird fluctuations in flows and pressures. In this case, because the leak is so minute, that didn't contribute to a significant deviation in our trends to trigger an alarm.
Councillor P.
thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm somewhat concerned about it. Would you expect to normally have to replace 40 Ts after such a short period of time? We spent an enormous amount of money putting this treatment plant in Pahiatua, and we've had a number of issues subsequently that has cost a lot of money to repair. I dare say it's beyond the time of guarantees from Philtech, but are these issues others are having with Philtech operations or Philtech plants, or is it just, or are you not sure about this, whether it's just us? But it seems to me that while it might be a very up-to-date and efficient system, it's costing a lot of money.
So the membrane's not an unusual piece of equipment, so it will be used in multiple different places across the world. So we don't have anything unique at Pahiatua, but if you just cast your minds back to when we had the gassing problem with the chemicals, and we had to move the chemicals outside, some of that actually aged some of the equipment. And as you well know, plastics and things like that are often quite vulnerable to chemical damage. It may well have contributed to it, but it's not, again, that they have had issues at other places with these teas. So I think we're just unlucky in some respects. But
I must say, I cannot believe, and I mean this as an observation because I was nowhere near council when that building was built. Yeah, there was certainly things wanting the way that was designed. And we're at it, well, we're paying the price now, so you never do what that was. But all you guys weren't even around, and nor was I. But yeah, so as long as we learn from that, I think, yeah. Right, carry on, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pass again on to Vito to discuss Pongaroa.
Thank you. For Pongaroa, last year we've had 2 occasions of water disruptions. One was due to a leak on the raw water line, sending raw water to our water treatment plant. And the other occasion was during our SCADA upgrade at the treatment plant, which lasted 4 days. So for context, we do have sufficient volumes in our treated water reservoir to last for 2 days. So anything beyond that, any disruptions beyond that, we will have to rely on tankering services to boost our supply. Now, coming out from these few events, we have tightened our communications with 2 bulk water transportation groups. So one is Dennywerk Volunteer Fire Brigade, and the other one is a bulk water tankers company. So in terms of communications and procedures to activate water supply, that part we have tightened our communications, and we are more ready to receive or react to such unfortunate events in the future.
Could I just ask, excuse me, you feel a lot better the way you've, because every time we have an event, as long as we're going better, yeah. I mean, that's reassuring what you just said. And
Yes.
now I think the next one down will be interesting. Over to you, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that we have worked out a good operational procedure for both for Pongaroa, but as well as that we've identified the necessary steps that we need to take as well with the community group and with what the overall scheme looks like. So hopefully we can continue working through that and we can have that all sorted out. Akatio Water. And into Akatio, so I put a bit of a highlight there as to what we had accomplished within the last calendar year and what we have currently planned for this year. So we are looking at renewing the pipeline currently between the treatment plant and the current treated reservoirs at the top, and also investigating and progressing either raw water storage within vicinity of the current treatment plant, which I think, well, I would hope that we all agree that will be the single largest improvement that the scheme would have in terms of reliability as well as resilience. We have continued to have some forms of intermittent leaks or airlocks and other issues out at Akatio. However, we seem to have again come up with another few steps that we will take immediately, which we have done. So would you like to continue?
I'll add on to what Mike has shared regarding some of the ongoing issues. So a few months back, we have put in place 4 new water reservoir tanks out at Akatio. We have cleaned it, we have put it online, and that coincide with the Christmas and New Year celebrations. So in additional water storage has helped us in terms of the supply of water. But because we've put in some new tanks, the ball corks may or may not have been fit for purpose. So when the tank comes up full and the ball cork isn't functioning properly, that has led to overflow and leaks coming out in the public area. And that is one of the reasons why there's some public feedback or CRMs around it. But as of yesterday, we have replaced those ball corks with ones that we have deemed fit for purpose. We have also put in a pressure reducing valve just to reduce the pressure going into the tanks and giving the ball corks a bit more room to fulfill their purpose. So with that done yesterday, we should be able to directly address the leaks caused by the tanks overflowing. In terms of the airlocks that was reported in some of the CRMs, that was also primarily because some of the tanks were empty, and as the treatment plant produces water and top up the tank, we are able to eliminate those issues from coming back. But certainly, if the tanks were to go down low again at the next peak demand period or the next festive season, we might face this issue again. So definitely it's at the back of our minds, and we will continue to see how we can prevent that from happening again.
Councillor Walls.
Thank you very much, Chair Steve, for your discretion in allowing me to speak to this. I think it's fair to say Pongaroa and Akatio have unique features in their water supply schemes, and it is an absolute credit to the team here that they have been taking these complaints on the chin and acting as quickly and decisively as they've been able. I think we need to remind ourselves that infrastructure and the network development that's occurred in the last few years is fantastic. What this team is now dealing with is some of the old pipe work and the old systems that were put in place and were coping until Akatio, for instance, became such a popular spot. So although it sounds like there's a lot of a lot of issues out there. They're being dealt with as they arise. But I am really pleased that you've got the ball cocks and pressure valves in, because, you know, a phone call about Sharon, the water is out the top, then, you know, it's good that these guys have been able to act on that. The other thing I want to commend them for is that in both areas, this team is working hard with the community, and the community really wants to work with council. So there are some different iterations that they're working through at Pongaroa and at Akatio, but I think the willingness to work together and having the insights, you know, that Marcus and Vito are able to add to the team, and the understanding, I just want to say thank you. There's still work in progress, but as I promised, as Mayor Scott and I promised at the Akatio ratepayers meeting on the 2nd of January, that this time in 2027 we won't be having the same conversation, thanks to the team that's behind this. So no touching wood, Mayor Scott, we've got it sussed, haven't we, team?
Thank you.
Sharon. No, thank you, Chair Scott.
Close. Anyhow, yeah, can I just ask a question, because this is probably directed to the data man. An average person takes 4 litres of water intake a day, okay? So what's your storage out there now?
Sorry, could you clarify the question? Sorry.
An average person takes 4 litres of water a day intake, okay? So if 4,000 people turned up out there, how much water do you need? So what I'm trying to ascertain, you've got X, Y, it's only a simple maths problem. You've got so much intake, right? And I know that you're going to tell me how much is coming in those tanks every day, but your storage capacity is X, and you drink Y on average, and Z's what's left. So do those figures work?
Are you just talking about Akatio on its own? Yeah, it's a bit difficult with Akatio, the fact that the population changes so much.
No, that's the point. Christmas. We only have this at Christmas, because that's where the 4,000, it's not 4,000, we haven't done the audit yet. But what I'm trying to do is safeguard that peak. You know, the bell curve, we're trying to, because that's what you've got to do at Christmas. That's where that's sitting at the peak. So is the storage, we don't have a problem if we've got the storage capacity.
So we could run some numbers around the storage capacity, but again, it is treated storage. So that's where it becomes quite tricky to have that online and I guess an estimate of what that number could potentially look like would lead us to have compliance issues with the treated storage. Hence why we are looking at a raw water storage to be able to actually draw from and supplement the town. We understand that the treatment plant out there is actually quite capable to be able to produce that kind of water for the flows that we've seen.
Yeah, that's cool. Sorry, Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And correct me if I'm wrong, team, but I've been learning a fair bit about Akatio water, particularly just before and after the 2nd of January. It is an interesting situation there that is more complex because of the spike in population around summer. But also the storage side is a little bit more complex too, because of the let's say the desire and requirement for people to have their own water storage, and that people having their own tanks being trickle fed and built up over time is really where part of that resilience equation comes in, but it's a much harder part of the equation to quantify. So I think what the team is doing, and I'm very supportive of it, is saying, yes, we need to have more storage, but it can't be permanent storage, because otherwise the water sits there too long when we don't have the spike in population. But we will have extra raw water storage, so then the treatment plant can actually treat that get it out to the township and carry on trickle feeding the tanks that are in there. If there were really easy solutions for Akatia, we wouldn't be having the ongoing problems. And I think it's a testament to the team and, to be frank, some real number eight wire mentality of thinking, how can we make this infrastructure work with such different populations at different times? So I've been quite excited, even, at the end of last year and the start of this year, coming back in January, to hear some of the thoughts and some of the ideas that the team have had. Mostly, though, I'm also very appreciative of the team for their willingness to work directly with the community, because that's going to be the solution in a small town, or a settlement base, of having those eyes on the ground and working in partnership. And the willingness of the team to do that is very beneficial. So thank you.
Just adding to that, I think, because it's like having you're only as strong as the weakest link, and I think, they're all working together, but I've never heard how many people have got tanks out there yet, and that's been going, and it's not your problem. But I think Councillor Wards would agree with me. We've asked, and maybe, this is not to this, is to that community group. If they can help us, we can help them more. You know what I mean? So hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be less demand. So anyhow, just adding to what you were saying, Mayor Scott. Carry on, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mayor Scott. No, there's no corrections to that. You're correct. One of the things that I'll just say as well is that those tanks that we did put out there, we felt it very necessary to progress with that, as that was something that had been promised to the community for a number of years. We did a stock take of our own inventory across the district, and hence the reason why we actually moved out our tanks out there, and at a reduction of having to do these concrete tanks. And then we're able to pivot and start looking at utilising that money to install raw water storage. So that's where that's all sort of gone. If we're happy with that, I'll carry on with wastewater. We're still working through our trade waste and what that trade waste and backflow officer would look like. And then onto some of our Northwood, Ormondville and Pongaroa, with a bit of an exciting trial that we have going on within Northwood.
In the wastewater space, there were new wastewater standards last year, and as a result, we've engaged with our consultant, the wastewater specialist, to have a look at what are some of the upgrades or potential improvements in some of our smaller ponds, wastewater plants, in order to meet the new requirements. And coming out from the research, they've identified that 3 of our plants, which is Ormondville, Northwood and Pongaroa, they do face certain challenges in terms of ammonia removal and total suspended solids, TSS. Now, through the consultants' network, they know of InnoFlow and their Avantech system. And this system isn't new in New Zealand. It has been installed, but mainly in private settings. So it has proven to be very efficient in removing ammonia and TSS. And it is also a rather passive treatment process, which doesn't include aeration. It's a matter of just recirculating the wastewater inside the system to reduce the TSS and ammonia. So we are conducting a 12-month trial, and at the end of it, we'll see if it has been proven to be efficient and effective in treating wastewater from the ponds. And if that's the case, then we will proceed with upgrades for the 3 wastewater plants for us to meet the new wastewater standards.
Which I should take a moment to highlight as well, that following the wastewater strategy that we did have in place, this would be a significant reduction in what the outlook looks like for those upgrades to all 3 sites.
Good work. Yeah, exciting. And it must work. I've got I'm an optimist because, as you just said, about they're in other sites, you know.
So as a previous, I suppose, presentation on the Three Waters side of the house, we've also had our network program, and I highlighted 5 of our key network upgrades or works that need to be completed. I highlighted at that time that they have been, I suppose, the more trickier ones to figure out in regards to making sure that they're all across our growth, the renewal, what that requirements are for consenting issues as well within those areas, but also the criticality of them. Making sure that it ties into the upgrades as well to either the treatment up plants or to the outfalls. But I have asked Marcus, who has been doing a lot of the work here within this space as well over the last few years, number of years, to also come along and answer any questions after I've provided this sort of insight to you.
Councillor Chris.
Cheers, Steve. On 29 in the wastewater, the wetlands that's going on in Paeatua, there was a comment raised at Explore Paeatua, was it last week, just around the strengthening of the flood protection for the wastelands area, because it's known by locals that that area is fairly susceptible to being flooded and being covered in silt. Is that something that is in the considerations? I know they were just asking if there was going to be anything further in there, if there was walls or something going in to sort of protect that a little bit further. I don't know how long ago. I don't know the area that well, so I can't really comment personally on it, but this is just raised from locals.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, sorry. The Paeatua sewer trunk mains that we're discussing there is more to do with the actual sewer system going along the back end of Paeatua. In regards to the wetland development, I would hate to steal Eugene's thunder as he comes in after this with the capital projects reports, in which he also covers it in detail, but that has been considered into it, and they have experienced some sort of flow events over that area within the construction timeframes as well, but it seems to be quite well accounted for.
Heavy crit.
Yeah, I have another one on page 31. It's probably, yeah, still within this. Within water permits, with them expiring in the past, and sorry, I'm not up to date with where we're at and what it is. What does it look like for us having these expired consents around our water sources in these areas?
So through you, Chair, the water permit section there refers to the Ikitahuna and Woodville and Paeatua ones that have expired. We've been working through with Horizons, and they've received the submissions, and they're happy with where we're progressing with those. So we don't expect any sort of adverse reaction from that. The Dannevirke water permit, though, however, we've been working through, and it seems to be the case that as we've worked through it, that the numbers that we've been getting back for what the take would look like would be more restrictive and would look to tighten up in the future, especially around the criticality consideration of the Dannevirke impounded supply within the Dannevirke's water scheme in total. So looking at that and having a bit of a think about how that looks by installing, continuing on with our pre-treatment and our clarifier, we would be able to in the future re-look at the criticality of the impounded supply, and that may have a positive effect for what our water take limits may look like. But all that aside, because of the RMA changes that have been put forward, we have the option to have an extension for 2 years, and we believe that's our best course of action to maintain the current Dannevirke water permit.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Back to Paeatua treated water transfer main upgrades. It surprises me that 200 millimetre PVC pipe, which is not that old, is failing. Are there leaks at the joins, or have they been created by fractures through movement above ground, or and where are the leaks? Are they in that area that's what's it called, Horseshoe Lane? Is it down that way, or can you give me some background to that?
Good question. Primarily, when we put the programme together for renewals, this one certainly did not come up, because you're correct, PVC pipe that was replaced in the 1990s, so it should be nowhere close to renewal, but we've had at least 12 or 13 failures on that in the last 4 years. And primarily the reason is because the pipe was not laid correctly and it was not bedded properly. So the cheats way of doing it would be, I get a nice new pipe, I dig myself a trench, drop my pipe in, and I just tip all of the spoil from that, what you dug out for the trench, on top. Problem being, it's full of rocks and large stones and things like that, which put pressure onto the pipe. The pipe does move to a certain extent under pressure when it's used and when pumps start and stop. So what we've actually found is there's longitudinal cracks in the pipe. So instead of like puncture holes or the failure of a joint, it's actually precipitated along the pipe and just caused a split, essentially. And it's happened in multiple locations on that pipe. So the only solution to that is to actually replace that pipe, unfortunately. But there are a number of other benefits to that as well. So back in the 1990s, things were different to where we are now in 2026. So it gives us an opportunity to be able to look at resilience, able to, we've been looking at growth for a long time. That is an area that has been identified for growth. So it's an ideal opportunity for us to not only fix a problem, but also to build resilience and look at the growth in the future by putting it into the road corridor and not out into rural part. So we've got many opportunities with this one, although it's unfortunate that we're replacing it a bit early.
No, thanks, Marcus. Are those splits in one area particularly, or is it right along the line?
It's occurred in multiple locations along that line. It's not just isolated to one particular section. The problem being that if we allow a catastrophic failure to happen, Pahiatua will be out of water for quite some time. So we've been fortunate so far that we've been able to just chop bits out. So we've got a bit of a patchwork quilt out there, I'm afraid.
We've, thanks, Peter. We're having a bit of bad luck with Pahiatua, not actually coming up trumps, are they, with their previous work? Because this is all legacy for us. It's the old story, isn't it? But you work and hope that people are doing it right. And I think they're under the watchful eye of the water team now. I don't think anyone's going to get away with it. So good. Let's carry on, shall we? Oh, Erina, please. Councillor Erina.
Thank you, Chair Steve. I just want to ask about the sewer system, the main trunk line. You've got a bit about Dennywerk there. So the map you've got, and it's got the old original pipe broken under the factory. So that's, I'm just trying to understand the map. So that's not used anymore? That part's not used anymore, or is it still currently used and been leaking?
Another good question. So to answer your question, there's two pipes there. There's one that runs underneath Metalfall, the factory, and there's also a newer one which was put in the 1970s along Eastern Road. When you look back at the historical records, a lot of the older pipe replaced by the newer pipe should have been abandoned. But we're guessing that the usefulness of those old pipes, for instance, the factory had been built over the top and there would be lots of connections to that factory to the old pipe, which would have probably been quite difficult to then get it out to the new pipe in Eastern Street. So we're putting 2 and 2 together and maybe coming up with 5, but I think we've come up with a 4, is that it just became too difficult and too costly. So the old system just remained.
Just on that, sorry, supplementary, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, just on that, because there's a real bad pothole, and it scares me to think what's under that, because it just keeps subsiding. So it's straight outside Middleform, and that's in the vicinity. I don't know if you've done any sonic testing there, but I don't like the feeling. Carrying on. Erina, please.
Thank you. So what's because I know that about the potholes, and that's why we've sort of held back in upgrading that T section along Millers Road there in Eastern Street. So what's our resolution? What are we looking at for this area? Like, what are we planning? Thank you.
Some pretty radical stuff, to be fair. So, look, generally the way that it's been looked at in the past is you've got a system and you just replace it like for like. What you need to do is look at what are the various options and what is the best way to engineer a lot of the problems that we are suffering out. So analysing it, the systems get utilised in quite different ways with growth and further industry and land use and all of those kind of things. So what we're looking at is solutions to engineer out the problems that we've had in the past, like overflows and surcharging and all of those kind of things. And how do we resolve that? Well, it means we need to get rid of the old system, which is well over 100 years old, which is currently being utilised. So if we take that out of the picture, we need to do something quite different to overcome, to deal with the amount of flows that we've got. The other thing, so to answer your question, we need to put in a terminal pump station to be able to get the flows up into the wastewater treatment plant to eliminate the gravity sewer siphon. We also need to turn some of the sewers around, which are going with the natural flow of the land, which is not practical because then it will take us through some pretty tricky areas. So the way to do that, we have to reverse the sewers, but it goes against the lay of the land. So we're going to have to put pump stations to be able to get it uphill, as opposed to where we've worked with nature and had it downhill. So that's essentially, so there's one smaller pump station up above Feltex, and then there's a larger terminal station which takes all the flow from all of the catchments in Dannevirke and then pumps that on to the wastewater treatment plant. It's a lot better way of controlling things. People would avoid pump stations in the past because they were very, very costly to run, whereas now pumps are a lot more efficient. You can have VSD drives that just ramp pumps up and down. So that's why we're looking at that option, which far better overcomes the problems that you would come up with if you had to operate with the system as it currently is.
And it would take away Windsor Street's problem. It's kind of anyhow, carrying on. We're running out of time, Tim. Sir.
So if there's no further ones on the 5 main areas that we're looking at for our reticulation networks, I'd just again like to just say, yeah, the Dannevirke Southern Sewage Trunk Main upgrade and the Paitua Treated Water Transfer Main, to be fair, competing actually at the moment for priority, and that's just based on the Paitua Treated Water Main transfer upgrade that we're looking at, highlighting a number of failures. We have seen that those failures have increased in recent years, so it does seem to be deteriorating quicker. I've touched briefly on the consenting and compliance. We've also a quick review there of the stormwater section. We've talked about the water permit. So at the end of that is just the administration. So effectively we are back out to international market for water treatment operator. We have some interviews coming up shortly, which seem promising, so that's good. Cadet still continues to perform well with Invita and his team. Our asset data capture is still progressing, and the information that's coming through is, again, going to better posture us for the transition to the CCO. And even with that happening and the pending CCO creation and what that means for our staff and our team, we are still, as we've talked about before, still dedicated, and the team is still pulling together to go out and work with the community. So I'm quite happy with where we're going, but if there's any further questions.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. There's a lot of work here to be done. I guess my question is, what are the priorities, and or is this more to get these issues on paper in front of the CCO so that they know it's all, this is what they're going to have to deal with? Which of these do you think you'll be dealing with as opposed to the CCO?
Well, if we're just regarding the network ones, I believe that at this stage we will be working on the Dannevirke Southern Sewage Trunk main upgrades as well as the Paitoa treated water main upgrades as works in the ground for us. I would say though that regardless we have to get the asset data in, and we have to continue with our design work as to what those upgrades look like for the future, which we have been progressing through, and each one of them also should go through a bit of a multi-criteria analysis on different options and what that looks like, and as well as factoring in what our intended growth was. So there is a lot of work, and we have to prioritise and resource it as we go, but it is something that we're managing, even though some people are about to shoot off on leave.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just one last one that I think from me that was missing from what was in here around the I&I in Eketona. With the challenges with the inflow, and they're currently getting abatement notices around there, are they getting abatement on their wastewater into there at the moment? I don't know if they were still or not. I think they were right on the edge of getting past that, weren't they, with the last meeting we had in Paitoa for the water stuff. But I know you've mentioned about some things that need to be done in Eketona, specifically down, Bridge Street and possibly down Newman Road, and a bit of work there. It'd be good to have some visibility in the next one for what's going on there, what could happen, how we should approach it, because I think that's critical. If we do get rain events in Eketona, it causes issues around the entire network for our storm and wastewater.
Right. Well, I think we've finished that part. Is that right? But before you get up, could you, for me and TV Land, just quickly go across and just re-announce your team?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Chair. So I'm Mike Dunn. I'm our Operations Delivery Manager, and this is Marcus Clifford. He's our Three Waters Asset Manager, and we have Vito Lim, our Three Waters Operations Manager.
Thank you very much. Great work. Right, we're going to move on. We're going into solid waste. Pardon me? Right, and Hamish is going to take that one. So without any further ado, thank you very much, guys. Further ado, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair Steve. So we'll take this one largely as read. It's reasonably short, and happy to take any questions on it. I can answer some of the questions generally.
Councillor Erin.
Thank you, Chair Steve. These figures are interesting. That's why I'm asking the question. Because if you look at November, waste diverted from landfill 10 tonnes, and then contaminated recycling to landfill 2.4, and then you get to December, and we only really recycled 0.8 of a tonne. Because waste was diverted from landfill 2.24, and then contaminated recycling to landfill 2.32. I'm actually reading that wrong, aren't I?
Through you, Chair. So I think those figures need to be read separately. So waste diverted from landfill is the staff going in and spotting things that are sitting in the pit that shouldn't be there, pulling them out and going, actually, that's recycling. So that's diverted from landfill. So if they're able to pull some steel out, they will, or something like that. So that's diverted from landfill. Contaminated recycling to landfill is when it comes in on the recycling truck. They dump it all out before they push it up, and they spot a couple of bags of rubbish. So it's really just an indication of how the public's using the service. So are they recognising that things they're bringing in, trying to send off to landfill, they should actually be recycling? So in December we've done slightly better as a community because there's been less go out in the pit and slightly less contaminated recycling coming from the truck. Thanks.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Hamish, for this. Just a request for the next report. I quite like looking at numbers year on year, so it's great having the full 12-month spread, but we're sort of talking about, you can see December having quite a change. For me, it would be really helpful to see what December 24 looked like, to see if you can kind of spot any seasonal changes. That could either be done one of two ways, of just having another chart in there for 2 years, so you've got 2-year comparison, or just having 13 months on the scale. So at the start of the scale, you'd have December 24, and then you can just look at the two ends and say, that's pretty similar by comparison. But that might make that a bit more meaningful for us to see if there's any trends.
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Scott. That's a great suggestion. Knowing the way Jo operates, she does talk about the busy season, which is what we're currently in. So it is very seasonal. The recycling at the moment is a lot higher than it was. A lot of glass bottles over summer who would have picked it. We need to share those I guess assumptions within our team. We understand the seasonal side, but it's not communicated very well. So we'll certainly take that on board.
Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair Steve. Just one quick one, just around the recycling, the big bins that are, and the skip bins that are there. In Ikitahuna, I've had a number of people comment. It's not really an issue for me, but it's about the racks and the height of the racks that people put the boxes on. If you're 6 foot, fine, works, but if you're less than that and try to put a box in there and then trying to unload into those bins, there's been a lot of people saying they can't use that rack and then throw stuff in there. So they have to put it on the ground. It's just adding to, people hurting their backs when they're doing stuff. And so if it's possible to talk to who supplies the bins and make sure they're, there with fit for purpose racking, just sit there, containers on, that would be good.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I'll certainly pass that feedback on. I know they're fairly prescriptive, and there's quite a few health and safety regulations around it, trying to encourage people not to stand on them and things like that. So you can't have them too low. There's a bit of a sweet spot there, and I acknowledge for those that are physically challenged, it might be a little bit tricky, but not looking at anyone in particular.
Because if you brought the holes down lower, you only use half the container. So your volume's out, the cost goes up, and the rates go up. So we're all it's never a diminishing circle. So we've got to hit that happy spot. Maybe, I don't know, if you're a short person, take a box with you. I use a height adjuster all the time because I'm vertically challenged. Right, carry on.
Happy to take any further questions on solid waste. Thank you, Joe. Joe will be happy to hear on record that was a cool track.
I've got one, Hamish. Batteries. Now, batteries are little bullets. If you stick them in a fire. I had a friend got shot by one. I know, but I'm just putting it out there. It's free to the public if you take your batteries to the recycling in Dannyburg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is free to drop off, and we highly encourage people to collect them at home and drop them all off at once. We way prefer that than it going into the recycling bin where it becomes a hazard for the truck and for the people processing the materials. So, and we dispose of it at our end in a considered way.
So just, I just want to clarify 3 things. So that goes right up to a car battery?
Yes.
And what about dangerous chemicals like brake fluid, etc.?
I would have to check with our solid waste manager, but I believe we do take them as well in one shape or form. It depends on the chemical themselves, I believe.
Yeah, no, it can be a landmine. Right, moving on. Page 34. Isn't it a nice truck? Are we getting any other work for that? You're outside the district? There was rumours of that being used somewhere else?
At this stage, it's just been used internally within the district. It's fairly well utilised. I think there's a little bit of capacity left, which we're looking at for another part of the district.
Right. Well, I think we've made that one. And so if we go back to page, very beginning. Am I right here, Ali? Mm-hmm. Cool. Right. Moved by Councillor Peter and seconded by Mayor Scott. Well, thank you very much, Hamish. Great report. We're carrying right on. And now I'd like to call on Eugene Priest, Senior Project Manager for the portfolio program of project reports. Eugene, it's all yours, I think.
Good morning, Chair Steve, Mayor and Councillors. PMO and our projects have been moving through our large portfolio of infrastructure projects very well, and we've been moving them through their hold points in the framework as expected. I can do that. So we've been moving these critical projects through the required framework hold points in line with expectations. Currently, we have gone out to market for a replacement project manager who just left last week. So our capacity is somewhat reduced, but the projects that that person was holding on to have been shared out amongst our current team. So we're managing them well, I think, and there's been no reduction in the project movement because of that person moving on. On page 39, we've got our project state and stacked area. And we can see from that our projects are moving quite well on from the identification stage and into delivery.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Steve. Thanks, Eugene. On page 41, the integration of services in Woodville, waiting for additional cost information from architect. When I heard that an architect was being used, I thought, why on earth would you want an architect to do basically what's a home handyman's job? To remove a door and remove a wall and put a bench in.
Can I just, sorry, I've got to butt in there because, Hamish, could you just put the refrain, it's all about the law, sorry, Pete.
Through you, Chair. So I believe the architect needs to assess the building structural capacity. Some of those changes would be to walls and things that we have to have the design. I mean, the builder themselves can do that work. That's not a problem. But to actually determine whether we can move things within the building, walls and structures.
Does it legally require an architect?
Yes.
You're joking.
That's the rules with a building that's used in a public capacity. We have to make sure that the changes that we do to these buildings have a design to them, are signed off by the appropriate people, and we have to apply the rules that we operate within.
Please carry on,
Could I just add
Eugene.
to that?
No, Pete, we're getting close, so carry on, Eugene. Thank you.
Yeah, since it's Councillor Peter has brought up our one-liners, are there any other questions around our one-liner projects?
Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just a very quick question, Eugene, on the Carnegie. Just wondering when this table will receive an update. Great to see that a memo is going to ELT for consideration. It would be very, very desirable for councillors to receive an update on the Carnegie, please.
Through the chair, thanks for the question, Mayor Scott. With the memo going to Hamish and the Chief Executive, I believe the next council meeting or the one directly after that, we would get an update on that, on Carnegie.
Yeah, please go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Could I just request through you that is added onto the action register for this meeting, please, so we can double check it at the next one?
Yes, that's a good reminder of us. We're having this action register because otherwise it goes into the noise bin. We want lots of signal. We're 80-20 this year, 80-20. So thank you very much. Councillor Erina.
Thank you, Chair Steve. I just wanted to ask about the Dannevirke dog pound improvements. I see they're scoped works, and I know we're going to visit there next week. Is it to do with safety improvements and to keep the building compliant for the animals? I just want to know what it was. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. They are to do with animal welfare regulations. Enough light, are they too hot, covered exercise areas, and a caged front for staff safety and the delivery or pickup of dangerous dogs or people who are being aggressive. So they're our what are covered in that current scoping.
Chris, Councillor Chris, please.
Cheers, Chair Steve. The report that you've got on 40 and 41 with the projects that are ongoing, is there a possibility to have a milestone date put on these for when each of these milestones, the next milestone that's met or next stage, so we have a bit of a projection of picture of time frame for these? Is that possible?
Yes, through the chair, I think it is possible we could do that.
Councillor Peter.
I'd like to go back to that, the Woodville Service Centre. It's been over a year now since we okayed the integration of services, and that was to be the first one to be done. Nothing's happened. Why hasn't it happened? And are we going to wait another year for that to be done? In other words, we can't integrate the services, and there are staff considerations and what have you, unless that small building little alteration is made in the wall. But how long is it going to take?
That is a good question, Peter, and that's the noise, isn't it? That's the noise we're talking about. So I appreciate. I didn't realise that was going to be your supplementary. Good question. So procedure. We're going to find out now between operations, but first we're going to Mayor Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair and Councillor Johns. I quite agree, and this has been expressed to the ELT member looking after the project. We will be getting an update on this shortly. There has been a number of constraints, but I've made very, very clear that it is a priority for us to see delivery of agreed projects, and there was no pushback for that. This is part, and I just want to talk about this from a governance perspective. This is part of the structure that we're putting in to be making sure that we're giving adequate direction through to operations and then monitoring the direction and the decisions that we've made for delivery. Some of that is on us, and we need to have our framework and our structure ready. So our questions are very predictable on that, and when we hit a month or we hit 2 months, we are asking the right questions. So we have another committee, and we have a briefing coming up shortly, a pre-agenda meeting, which is the Performance and Monitoring Committee, which will take a really key role in making sure that these things are being followed up on from governance.
That's very good, Mayor Scott, and that's the good part, or with the different lines we're taking this term with the different committees. So hopefully with the registrar and the different committees just mentioned, going forward, hopefully that job will get done. But before, I'd like to call on Hamish to just say a couple of words.
I actually just wondered whether, Eugene, did you have an answer to where we're at with
about the time frame? So, as Mayor Scott mentioned, there has been a couple of hiccups along the way with this particular project, but at the moment we've got it we're sort of negotiating the short form agreement with the designer and the associated engineers, which is be a structural engineer and a fire safety engineer, because there are some decisions that need to be made around wall movements and within the building. So we have to have. There are some issues with that building. It's not,
Let's keep the button going because the clock's ticking.
So what will happen then, it won't take him very long to get it to he's already scoped it out. It won't take him long to get to have a completed design for us to go out to market for construction to build. So that wouldn't be that far. He could have that available in less than a month, and then we could have a tender process around constructing from that design, and then we move from there. So it's not actually, that process wouldn't actually be that.
So Eugene, you just said less than a month, so we're going to hold you to that, or that committee is. So good on you. Thank you for that date. Yeah, at least it's a date. You got a date, Peter? A part of a date? Right, we'll turn it into a SCOM.
Just to confirm that, that's to go out to tender.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you said. Yeah, we can play the tape back. Yeah, no problem. That's the good thing about technology. Right, let's move on. Thank you.
No more questions about the single line projects there. We'll move on to our major one-page projects. The pay-to-tour pool. At the moment, we're just confirming some funding through.
Sorry, I see Sharon.
I didn't want to interrupt you, Eugene. I do have a question.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it was that one.
Yeah, we were just confirming funding at the moment with the Bush Aquatic Trust. The architect is doing the variation redesigns, and we've got some agreement negotiations going on. That's the current state of the pay-to-tour pool.
Councillor Wards.
Thanks, Chair Steve. I didn't want to interrupt you, so I apologise, Eugene, but when I read that, I get a sense that there's been some changes in the goals for the funding they want to achieve. If I interpret it correctly, because there is comment there that there's been some variations around the design to. So have they adjusted their sights when it comes to the fundraising, or what have been some of the changes? Because the timeline still says that, you know, we're going to be kicking off in fairly soon.
I think, well, Mike's coming up. We'll let Mike speak to
Yeah,
this.
I'm just after a bit more context. I appreciate the detail here, and there's no red boxes, which is what I always look for. But can you just give me an update sense on how the community's expectations are on this? Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Through your chair. So the Bush Aquatic Trust met with ourselves and a number of stakeholders, so and some from around this table as well, to discuss the design changes that we were proposing, and that was to fit it within the budget that we currently have. That's ours as well as theirs, and confirming those funding. So that funding package then is the constraint that we have to work towards, and we've been working with that, with the architects, as design changes, and then we will then be able to have that negotiation with our contractor to establish a build contract. So we're just working through that, and then what those sort of consent amendment changes look like, and that's about where we're at.
There have been changes.
They are changes to the build, but they are not changes to the overall delivery of what we would be providing to the Paetoa community.
Yes, Scott.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. And recently, I've through you to Councillor Wards, have been involved within some of the discussions with this at a high level. Once this, the build went out to tender, some of the prices were higher than anticipated. I have been very, very clear from a governance perspective, and hopefully the team would support this, that extra funding from the council would be so unlikely that it's probably not worth asking. There's been an envelope that was agreed within the LTP, and that's what council's committed to. The Bush Aquatic Trust is committed to doing their part, or as much of that as they're able to. So we need to work within the confines of that fiscal envelope, while still delivering what was promised throughout the consultation document. So they are the boundaries. I do have to commend the team for the work and the ability to pivot to make sure that we're balancing the finances with the community need. But so I just wanted to give that perspective as well.
So just to clarify that, that's an estimated completion of 6,036,218 on that sheet, on the chart there.
They will have to be reviewed.
Reviewed.
Yeah, those figures are
Reviewed down.
Yes.
Great to hear.
Also, just
No, I appreciate it's not all ours, but we get it. Okay, carrying on, please.
Taking the rest of the report as read, is there any other questions around the full page projects instead of me giving separate updates?
Great work, Eugene. Now,
Thank you, everyone.
we have to have a mover and a second for his report, passed by Erina, the recommendation, I should say, and seconded by Alison. Great work. So thank you for your report recommendation on page 37. All those in favour? Yeah, I didn't do that last time. I apologise. I'm the new boy on the block. So look, I think we've had a very successful day. I do like the form, the new form. It's good. So we're now on to, we're going to close it very closely. So thank you very much for attending today, and those people that have travelled. Safe journey. God bless and goodbye.